It's on our table, isn't it? It was.
Doesn't say a date.
They're bloody fees,
No,
aren't they?
okay.
That's why I put some clear nails on each other.
Yes,
And then
yes,
I've got-
seven.
But you have to do that to the town mortgage.
Everybody ready? Yeah. 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. The Sandwich Town Council Human Resources Committee, 30th of October 2024. Apologies for absence.
Thank you. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Breen. He has a travel commitment. But Councillor Chuka has been substituted for Councillor Breen this evening.
Okay. Number 2, declaration of interest. To receive any declaration disclosable peculiar interest for members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Any comments? Okay.
No.
Number 3, minutes of the Human Resources Committee. To receive the minutes of the Human Resources Committee held on 8th July 2024 and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in the agenda.
I'd like to propose that the minutes are accepted as a correct record of this committee.
Anybody second? Can we vote?
Oh, sorry, did you have a seconder? Oh,
Yeah,
Councillor
Councillor
Breen, thank you,
Breen.
thank you.
Can we vote?
One abstention.
Yeah.
2 abstentions, yeah.
Two abstentions, okay. Do we have any public participation?
We do, Christine.
Good evening. I'm addressing you with regard to agenda items 5, 6, 7, 9 and 10, which are proposed to fall within confidential matters in tonight's meeting and relate to confidential minutes from the July HR Committee meeting, which included an update on recruitment for the property manager role and an increase in hours for the assistant clerk, line management arrangements for the town clerk, including proposed amendments to the standing orders and the terms of reference for the HR Committee, the Human Resources budget for 2025-26, role title review and date and time of next meeting. Please note that I have excluded item 8 as there is no doubt that it meets the criteria for excluding the public as stated in item 5. However, I cannot see how that exemption can be applied to all of the aforementioned items. Further, there is no mention of the public interest test. It seems to me there is a risk of applying excessive confidentiality when transparency relating to some of these items may be in the public interest. The standing orders state that the press and public's exclusion shall be by resolution, and that such resolution shall only be permissible within standing orders where A, the council has a duty under law to individuals whose personal data or other confidential information is required to be or is likely to be discussed, and B, the council is otherwise bound by law or compliance with a contract that requires a matter to be discussed confidentially in line with the 1960 Act, and that records of matters discussed in confidential session will remain confidential while the reason for confidentiality remains extant, subject to the Freedom of Information Act, the Data Protection Act and other relevant laws of England and Wales. The Information Commissioner's website states there is a public interest in transparency and accountability to promote public understanding and to safeguard democratic processes, good decision making by public bodies, upholding standards of integrity, ensuring justice and fair treatment for all, securing the best use of public resources and ensuring fair commercial competition in a mixed economy. I am bringing your attention to these points because 1, it is questionable whether items discussed confidentially in July continue to meet the criteria for maintaining confidentiality within the records of the matters discussed. Therefore, is it appropriate to keep separate confidential minutes? Is it not possible to maintain just one set of minutes and redact personal information if any is contained therein, as done historically? Keeping 2 sets of minutes in parallel may cause difficulties of itself and be more burdensome to officers when FOI requests are received. 2. Line management and performance review arrangements for the town clerk, including proposed amendments to the standing orders and the terms of reference for the HR committee, are organisational structure and governance matters that I would expect to follow NALC guidance rather than individual preferences. Further, the public already has sight of the existing arrangements and was permitted to remain in the meeting when the arrangements were previously amended and the HR committee was formed. It is unclear why this item is listed under confidential matters in this meeting. 3. The human resources budget for 2025-26 would involve personal information if staff are to be discussed individually, but not if the proposal is simply for a percentage uplift across the board. 4. A review of role titles and job descriptions relates to organisational structure, which should be aligned with and driven by the Council's responsibilities, mission statement and strategic objectives. Role titles, job descriptions and related personal specifications are independent of incumbents within roles, so it should be possible to review these without discussing personal attributes, performance or developmental objectives of staff, which I would expect to be reviewed through the appraisal process, which this is not, because that comes under item 8, which I am not querying. And 5, date and time of next meeting is clearly not confidential, and it would be useful for this to be shared with the public, especially when it is not in keeping with the published schedule of meetings and or the set time of 6:30 for committee meetings, in order to allow members of the public to amend their diaries accordingly. I'm asking councillors to consider the above points when deliberating the decision to exclude the public, also when determining if minutes proposed as confidential truly meet the criteria, or whether they should be published in the public interest or consolidated with the main minutes and sensitive data redacted, as was done previously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, number 5.
I think what you need to say really to Christine is we'll take those points away.
Yeah, we're taking points away, we'll be discussing. Okay. Number 5, confidential matters. Under the Public Bodies Admission to Meeting Act 1960, the public may be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the ground that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, by virtue of the paragraph specified against the item. Number 1, information relating to a particular employee or applicant to become employee of or a particular office holder under the authority. Decision required. So, I would like to
propose acceptance
committee
of
member
the...
to vote to go to confidential.
Comments first.
I would like to. I think item 6, I can't see that that's either controversial or confidential. It should be a straightforward discussion. All it's about is amending the standing orders and the terms of reference in a fairly simple and straightforward way. Unless the town clerk advises otherwise, I can't see we're going to have a big debate about that.
Well, I'm happy if you want to do it in the public, but what I will say is I do have some points to make, because you are discussing the line management of me as the town clerk, and you are discussing my performance. So I would appreciate it if, I don't mind it, we can do it on camera, I'm absolutely comfortable with that.
Okay.
But I do have points to raise.
Okay. You might, or maybe we could separate those two parts.
Yeah, I would trust, we employ the town clerk as a professional, and I would take her advice on all matters of professionalism as to meetings. If the town clerk has set this up, she set this up to abide by the legislation and the guidance that we're supposed to accept. We shouldn't be, you know, everybody is entitled to their personal opinion on how our meetings are run, but at the end of the day, there's one person that should be directing us as to how meetings should be run, and that's why we employed her.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. Do you accept the guidance of the person that you have engaged to run meetings, or do you want to listen to individual comments and considerations?
No.
I propose that we accept the guidance of the council. I can't see how the human resource budget, item number 7, can be disclosed to the public when it's got individual amounts detailing what all the members of staff are earning. How can that be released into the public domain?
I'm not suggesting that.
Seems quite incredible.
I'm not suggesting that.
So I've had a limited time to see the papers, having stepped in at the last minute, and certainly some of the items are 100% shoo-ins for being in confidence. With the item that you've mentioned, I've looked through that, and even in the limited time I've seen it, we cannot discuss those because it's very easy, regardless of whether it's names or not, because job roles and salaries, and also making sure that we've got the right structure really shouldn't be in public. So I'm certainly confident about that one. Others may have views on other items.
Chair, I've just got to say, I've been there 3 times and I've always been guided by the town clerk or the financial officer. That is their job, but if they say it's confidential, then it's confidential.
Okay. Anybody else, any comment? Okay, Councillor Black.
Yeah, if, I think the issue of the first part of 6, which is terms of reference, could not be described as confidential. I don't think there's any argument about that. 6B and C, which may devolve into actual discussions about the town clerk, I think there's a different argument. And I think there, if I understand from the what has been shared with us, there may well be items there which are personal to the clerk, and I would think that B and C are meet the confidentiality test. I think item 7 undoubtedly meets the confidentiality test in the way that the report has been prepared, because it does go into individual salaries. Item 8 is a general discussion there. Titles review, I'm not convinced that number 9 would be confidential, but I think there are elements here. We've got a very mixed economy here, and there are perhaps more issues than our public speaker has suggested. So I think there is more that's in the confidential sector than the non-confidential sector at the moment.
So I think you have to come to vote.
Yeah, I propose going into confidential for all the items that the town clerk has designated should be confidential, and I stand by that.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, can we vote? Can we go to vote? Let's go to confidential.
2 abstentions, thank you.
Can we go to confidential? I'm afraid.
Yeah.
The councillors, if you know